welcome to everyone with us today. My name is Maria Tranquilli, and I'm a program manager at NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center. For those of you who may not know, the NASDAQ Center is a nonprofit dedicated to enabling entrepreneurs from all over the world to realize their maximum potentials and grow. As you may see in the chat, the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center, along with our partner Mentor Cloud, is launching a major new movement called Mentor Makers. Our aim is to have 1 million mentor hours banked by 550,000 mentors, in the support of entrepreneurs. We ask you to take a moment to tag one or more mentors on social media who have helped you along the way. Use the hashtag #TagAMentor and Mentor Makers in the post and tag NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center. Be sure to include a photo or video to win a chance for you and your mentor to be featured on the NASDAQ Tower in Times Square. We will open up for live Q&A at the end of this event. Please submit your questions in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen throughout the presentation. And none of what we do would be possible without all of the amazing support from our sponsors, including NASDAQ, Lehigh University, Bank of the West, KPMG, Wilson Sonsini, Woodruff Sawyer, BPM, NZT, and Microsoft for Startups. We are humbled by their contributions. During these unique times, we are curious around sentiment and how you are feeling as entrepreneurs. I'd like to start by taking 2 polls. Poll number 1, launching this poll, how are you feeling currently? Please let us know. Are you feeling fearful, anxious? Are you surviving or feeling optimistic? Ending that poll and sharing results. Thank you all. It looks like we're surviving and optimistic today. Hopefully this conversation will inspire you into feeling more optimistic. And our second poll, what is keeping you up at night? Is it finance, sales, marketing? Is it scaling, pivoting, your team, or surviving? Let us know here. Ending that poll now and sharing results. It looks like finance is one of the things we are most interested in, and I know this conversation will hit on that today. Thank you all so much. I'd like to officially welcome everyone to Raising and Resilience, Veteran Founders on Risk, Funding, and Innovation. Today, we will hear from some of the most inspiring veteran founder voices who are agile, determined, and compassionate leaders with insights to share via personal stories and tactical steps to help all of you listening find success on your own terms. I'd like to introduce our panel today. Panelists, thank you so much for joining us. We have with us today Chastity Wright, winner of Google for Startups Black Founders Fund, founder of Infiltron, and founder and CEO of Ritech Solutions Consulting Group. We also have Ikram Mansouri, an accomplished senior executive, advisor, and thought leader with more than 13 years of success across military, government, and tech sectors, specifically with the trust and safety field using ML and AI. We also have Olaseni A. Bello Jr. Esquire, founder of Carpe Med. Olaseni was a commissioned officer in the U.S. Army, serving in Afghanistan, Romania, and Fort Hood, Texas. He is a Bronze Star recipient, a New York licensed attorney, and a second-year MBA at the UC Berkeley Haas School of Business. Finally, Michael McNerney. Mike is a technology entrepreneur and U.S. Air Force veteran with a primary focus on cybersecurity. He currently works as the Chief Operations Officer of cybersecurity insurance startup Resilience. Thank you all so much for being here with us. Let's start up this discussion on a high note. For all of the group, perhaps in the order that you were introduced, share with the audience what you're most proud of as a veteran founder leading your company and what sets your company apart from others. Chastity, I'd ask you to begin.
Hi, everyone. It's definitely a pleasure to be here. So to answer your question, Maria, some of the things that we are proud about with Infiltron is that we have a very diverse team, and it is absolutely colored with veterans. And that was all strategic. I wanted to kind of turn around and put my hand down and bring some of those people along with me. I worked on a lot of joint command missions, so I have a lot of comrades in different branches. And some of the things that we're most proud of is that, as well as being one of the first IoT cybersecurity small startups that is walking into the industry, mitigating issues around race and gender concerning facial recognition.
Chastity, thank you so much. Ikram, I'd love to invite you to share.
Absolutely. I would say, again, just emphasizing diversity and inclusion in building a team and in building a company, and all while contributing back to the community. So that said, one of the most things that I'm beyond proud of is definitely supporting the veteran community. And with that, we just recently launched a Sun startup network specific for the veteran community. And that's something that I'm extremely proud of, especially during this week of global entrepreneurship. Yes.
Ikram, thank you so much. Olaseni, I'd love to invite you to share.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I think you'll hear some similar consistencies with regards to teams. Growing a team from scratch is something I'm extremely proud of, but also motivating this team. We've grown out through the Berkeley ecosystem, Berkeley Engineering, the Berkeley MBA, and watching them grow professionally, personally, it's magical to watch. And in the military, you're only as strong as the team that you're part of. And so I think that's the sweet spot when you find a team that's motivating. That's something I'm extremely proud of. They are students. They're also extremely diverse and international. In fact, many of them are from our pilot locations for our launch. So it's really exciting to watch them see the potential that this initiative can have in their home countries.
Thank you, Olaseni. Michael.
Thanks, Yvette. Thanks, Maria, as ISIS as well for having us, as well as to the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center. And what a great panel. This is a pretty exciting and accomplished group of people here, and I'm honored to be amongst you. To answer the question, I think it's a lot like what Chastity said. My first startup, all of the co-founders, including myself, were veterans, and the majority of our employees were veterans. And that's not a usual thing. And so being able to pull together veterans of different stripes and put together a successful company was a remarkable achievement and something I'm very proud of. My current company, again, most of the founders are veterans. Most of the executive team and other leadership positions are held by veterans. And so again, that kind of common theme of bringing in veterans into the fold and into entrepreneurship is very exciting for me and something I'm really proud of. And I think I heard earlier that we have over 100 people signed up for this event. And so I'm hopeful that there are even more veterans out there that are interested in starting great companies, and happy to be a part of helping that journey.
Oh, thank you all so much. And on that note, for anyone that's in the audience, please share your MOS in the chat and make sure that when you do share in the chat, click all panelists and attendees so everyone can connect with you. We would love that. So again, chat your MOS and even your LinkedIn profile so we can stay connected during this conversation. Michael, I love the note that you just left off on. So I would love to invite you to share. We know that all startup founders and small business owners face unprecedented times at this moment. As a veteran founder of multiple startups, can you share with us lessons learned from modern small unit military leadership? What could be helpful, particularly for resource-constrained startups?
Yeah, and what a time to be answering that question. I think there are a couple traits that have carried over from at least my military experience. I think it's going to be true for a lot of people into being an entrepreneur. Obviously leadership, which I think is probably one of the most underrated traits in Silicon Valley. Everyone talks about engineers and product managers, and yes, those are important. But leadership, as I think we've seen time and again, is in very short supply. And so being able to bring that just generally as a trait to entrepreneurship, I think is important. I think having, what people call grit, is important as well. You will probably have more bad days than good. I've certainly been told no, I don't even 100 times more than I've been told yes. and believing maybe foolishly, maybe pigheadedly that you're correct, and that you're just going to persevere and accomplish what it is you said you're going to do. It's not easy. It sounds easy, but it's not. And so having those traits, I think, are very beneficial for entrepreneurs. And then, I think there was a time, maybe even up until fairly recently, when you could kind of put your head down and do a business and kind of ignore the world. And some people still try to do that. But I think I don't think you can really do that anymore. I think that there's just so much going on that impact you and all of your employees. You kind of have to grapple with it and think about your employees not just as employees, but as almost like a family member, almost like a unit, because you may have people that are impacted by immigration or social justice, or have to leave their house because of a wildfire, which we've had all of those in our company. And we have to acknowledge it and we have to deal with it. And I think that the military trains you to think about your employees or your troops as holistically, right? You're responsible for their education, for their safety, for their mental health, all of this, right? And having that, bringing that into the workforce, especially now, I think is critical.
Michael, thank you so much for sharing. I see a lot of nodding heads here. Ikom, Chastity, Olaseni, feel free to chime in if you would like to at this moment before I ask the panel the next question. Is there anything any individual would like to share here before we move on?
I think Michael really hit it on the head. We've all been a part of preparedness. That's a term that we use in the military, and those are some of the things that I'm sure all of us have carried over into our entrepreneurship lives. As he said, it's no man left behind, right? So no matter what's going on, in the people that are working with you, not for you, because that's my mentality with the companies that I run. They are family, and you have to, hop in and take care of them as so, things do come up and you try to be ahead of it as much as possible. So definitely kind of piggybacking off of what Michael said.
I would definitely add to that. I think it's far from what people see in the movies, like just a drill sergeant yelling at all time. It's not like that at all. If anything, officers and non-commissioned officers ought to take care of the soldiers' well-being, aside from all of the 360 things, administrative training, preparedness, you name it. Their well-being, physical, mental, it falls on the hands of the leaders. And that's something that I can vouch for, like any veteran founder that I've connected with, have that as their core leadership strategy in building a company.
Yeah, I think the panelists have covered so many of the sentiments I wanted to share, but I think looking at your startup as a family, and Carpe Med, we call each other the Carpe Med family. And as Chastity and Michael mentioned, things will occur, especially in this year, 2020, which has been extremely challenging mentally, emotionally for folks. We had a team member who had COVID, and we all pitched in to help that individual because of insurance issues, right? And so really understand that there's, to a point that Chastity made, they're not working for you. It is a family. Collectively, you're strong together as you go towards this mission of your respective startup.
Thank you, panel, so much. Very insightful responses here. And again, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. Please share in the chat your MOS and also your LinkedIn profile link so that we can stay connected. So for the entire panel, and perhaps you can share based on the order that you were introduced, each of you have built one or more successful startups from scratch. You've already touched on this. Share with us how your military training has informed your success. Please talk with us about the risks, the challenges, and how you overcame using your training.
So becoming an entrepreneur in itself is a risk, right? You don't have a net to fall into. You can't blame anybody. It's on you. You can't turn to the left or turn to the right and say it's your fault. It's the entrepreneur's fault. So that is probably the most major risk. I'm sure everybody's heard the analogy of you're building a plane while it's going down and hoping that before it hits the ground, it scoops back up and it's, taking flight. And, entrepreneurship life is like that, especially in the beginning, you don't know. And, coming into, because we're pretty heavy in the DoD space. So coming into that space from the uniform is a transition in itself. So, just trying to understand that game. If you didn't have the opportunity to work as a contractor, thankfully I did, but just imagining those that didn't get that opportunity so they could, be in that environment to understand how that side of the table works. Those are some of the risks that you take as an entrepreneur. You just don't know. You don't know what can happen. We're living in a pandemic right now. Who would have thought about that? There are so many X factors that could happen. Michael said that, we know California's been having wildfires. Like nobody can predict some of these things. So there are a lot of risks associated with it. And as far as military, the mission mindset has been a big help to me. I'm also an athlete. So, that athleticism and that teamwork, that mentality of having a mission, having a goal, and, actually sitting and individually with team members and wanting to know what their goals are. So you can kind of incorporate that into the overall goals of the company. If they want to be challenged, if they want to take a course, because right now my team, we all are going through a quantum computing course. So it's things like that. You have to have conversations with your people and understand them as individuals and see how they can better contribute their skill set to the overall goal and what type of goals they have individually, so you can help them, so you can support them in doing that and find little nuances, little nooks within the projects that you're working on to help them do that hands-on, because we all did hands-on training. And I have to say, that's probably the best. I've been through college at different levels, and I will always say, going through tech school was probably the best school setting that I've had, because it was hands-on. We are visual and doing learners, right? We want to touch things. Everybody's curious. That's just a human nature. So that's one of the things that I've incorporated in both of my companies. We do hands-on. There's no theory. We are the lab, so to speak.
Chastity, thank you so much. Ikram, I'd like to pass it to you.
Absolutely. In addition to all that Chastity has said, it's on point. I would say that having started multiple startups, and some of them failed, some of them succeeded, I want to touch on the failure. And that's something that us veterans is extremely trained for, the importance of resiliency when it comes to a successful startup or a failure, right? So we grow up in this culture of failure is not an option, and I live by that, and it's just the way you look at it in the startup world. So failure is not an option in the startup world isn't necessarily that it's your company that failed or anything like that. It's still a learning experience. It's still that it still has the ability to pivot and go where you need to go. And so with these times, COVID's been really hard. And one of my companies being in the service industry, we've been hit really hard. And so there are many ways one can contribute to the growth of their startup. And one of it for me has been, I'm a doctoral student, so I'm doing this specifically to contribute to the body of literature in the field that I'm in. There's many ways that you can go about seeking success, and then just doing everything that I can in the areas where my focus is specifically with the veteran community, with the policy and veteran entrepreneurship. So just continuing to work on those things. And I have a lot of bad days, but I sleep on it. I take a knee, I change my socks, and I drink some water, and then the next day I'm all good, ready to tackle the rest.
Ikram, thank you so much. Olaseni, would you like to share?
Yeah, I just want to thank Ikram too for highlighting the failures and the many bad days and how you push through that. The one thing that, the multiple things that military training has provided me post service, one is the ability to operate in the gray when there's a lot of uncertainty and there aren't any clear directives. The many times you find yourself what feels like you're in a dark room and you're just looking for a light bulb to go off so you can continue down a path. You don't even know if it's the right path. but you're constantly problem solving, constantly iterating. And that's one thing that when I reflect my military experience, I can't tell you how many times I had missions or assignments, orders where I had no clue how I was supposed to start what I was told to do. But you just do something and you build upon that. Pulling from that experience, because you're going to feel that a lot. There's going to be a lot of uncertainty. There's going to be light bulbs going off, and then the imminent darkness that comes out of nowhere. So I think that understanding that, you know, resilience is part of what our training embeds in us, and it's a key component of entrepreneurship. So I lean back and I look back at those experiences and I say, I've done this before. May not be this particular problem, right? But I've been lost before, and I've been able to navigate or hack a particular system to get to the right path. And so that's something that I would love to extend to lots of veterans, that we have many skills that we forget we have or that we downplay. But if you reflect, you'll realize that there's so many things you've done that are translatable, whether it's to entrepreneurship or any other endeavors you have on your plate.
Such wise words shared so far. Michael, would you like to wrap up this question? Would you like to share?
Yeah, sure. I mean, a lot of great points made already. I think from my perspective, I would just kind of hone in on three. I think the first, as Olaseni said, you know, to some extent, modern, you know, the nature of modern warfare and the modern military is somewhat entrepreneurial. You know, the battles that we fight and the challenges we face don't always have a clear way to be solved. And so you have to be a little bit entrepreneurial in how you go about solving them. It may not be combat, it may be setting up a drip irrigation system somewhere in Afghanistan, for example. Like, how are you going to do that? So I do think that taking some of those flexibility lessons are important. That's one. I think you know, this is a theme that we've all hit on a little bit, and that's taking care of your people. I'll just drill in on that a little bit more. In my first thought in particular, I mean, there were times when you know, I had gone months without a salary. There was $10,000 in the bank account to make payroll for 12 people. It was my money, and I didn't know where the next customer check or investment dollar was going to come from, and I had, like, you know, a week before payroll, right? Somehow I always managed to make it work, right? To use chassis, pull the airplane up out of that nosedive, always managed to make it work at the last minute. But I never gave up, and I never, whenever there was a burden, I took it, and I never let anyone else know about it or feel it in the company, any of the employees. And I think that's something that good military leaders do. And I guess I never told them about it, unless of course they're listening to this, but like, who's on Facebook, right? So you know, and it's not even about necessarily letting them know, right? It's just kind of about protecting your people. And then last, like, clearly, like, I'm in cybersecurity. The military does a lot of cybersecurity, so that there was a lot of benefit to being able to go and put together a team of people that have real expertise, and you have credibility when you go in front of an investor and say, you know, I'm in the military and I know about cybersecurity. They're going to say, oh, clearly, whether that's true or not, they're going to say, clearly that's true, and you'll have some credibility. So that was helpful.
Amazing. Thank you all so much for sharing so candidly as well. We know that the reality of the situations we face, we need to share candidly, and we need to share the reality, as we all spoke about also in our pre-session. We know that the founders and others in this conversation will really benefit from that. So thank you all so much. And I would love to dive into some very specific questions that are geared towards each individual. And to let everyone know, we make sure the questions we are asking during these interviews are actually sourced from you. So these are from the research that we have done within our entrepreneurial community. And we are so grateful for your feedback always. So Chastity, I would love to direct this question to you. Your company, Infiltron, takes a socially responsible stance in biotech, as you mentioned earlier in the conversation. Can you expand on the importance of social responsibility, and how are you leading the charge in an industry that has been largely unregulated, possibly dysregulated, and perhaps even biased?
So to just kind of stay on the candid lane, what we're seeing happening right now, especially around biometric technology, in particular facial recognition, is that this is going to turn into how we are governed in this country. You're going to see things like the Bill of Rights and the Constitution be implemented via tech, via facial recognition and other biometric technologies. And the issues that are coming up, one that we answer to, that we mitigate risk around, is facial recognition when it comes to people of color. and women. And we are the only company that can really say that we can mitigate those risks. Some of the projects that we're working on are actually affecting the people that are still in uniforms. A couple of bases here in the Southeast are being turned into smart bases, and they're going to be using facial recognition. We have people of color that are civilian employees, contractors, as well as in uniform, and we want to make sure that we can identify these people accurately. So, and then the other side of it is the compliance and the governance for legislation. Even it goes into the cybersecurity stuff. If you go on any of the senators' websites, you'll see on their agendas that they have cybersecurity at the top, because they know, what's coming through the industry via IoT. And a lot of the apprehension around adopting IoT is due to not having cybersecurity solutions for that. So that's one of the other things that Infotron is kind of coming into this industry being able to do, not only for the DoD space, but for financial institutions, healthcare industry, and we're even doing some things in the cannabis industry as well, which is going to be heavily regulated for a while until they figure things out. So that kind of plays into the whole cybersecurity and IoT space for the entire country, and we are doing some things in other parts of the world. So we're seeing that on the continent of Africa as well, and in South America. So the thing for us is to kind of be at the table, right? If we are the ones that are mitigating the issues for these demographics, we want to be sitting at the table when they implement things like the Constitution and other federal regulations, state and local regulations that are going to affect these demographics.
Chastity, thank you so much for sharing. And I see a lot of head nodding within our panelists. So does anyone want to chime in specifically around social responsibility to play off of some of what Chastity has shared? I want to make sure I leave room for everyone. Chastity, thank you so much for those words of wisdom. I know we have a lot of comments in the chat coming through, and thank you all again for joining us today. If you have comments and or questions, make sure to place them in the Q&A. The panelists here are incredible, and they will share their wisdom and answer all of your questions as we finish up this interview in probably around 20 minutes. So we have some time for you to input your questions in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Ikram, I would love for you to field this question. And Ikram, for everyone that has joined us, is from Vets in Tech, and this event specifically is in partnership with Vets in Tech. We are so grateful for the work that we get to do together around intersectionality and supporting founders and entrepreneurs at all intersections of life. So Ikram, again, thank you so much for being here and sharing your expertise. We know that.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Ikram. We know that much of the work that you've done lives at the nexus of agility, determination, and compassion. And as the Veteran Affairs Commissioner of San Francisco, founder of multiple startups, and the entrepreneur and innovation lead at Vets in Tech, what might you share that are the 2 to 3 top tangible lessons that you believe all founders can learn from veteran founders that specifically apply to our current reality?
Don't sleep. Just kidding. That was sleep is a crutch. Now you hear that a lot in the military, but you need your sleep. Okay. So first off, thank you so much. I am so honored to represent Vets in Tech and working closely with Catherine and the team to develop the startup network ecosystem for the veteran community. That's like my main focus right now, and it gives me the tickles, to see Chastity and have Michael and Alasani here, and hopefully we can see and serve more veterans. I think like from the sounds of it, it sounds like I've done a lot when in reality, it's not really a lot. It's just, going with the flow, working on goals that I have put down on paper. Assessing where I need to be headed and strategizing constantly how I'm going to get there. So I always like reflect and check in with myself and where I'm at and where I'm trying to go and what went wrong, what didn't go so well, and what went well. And in that, the most important skills we really touched on earlier for veterans, and veterans are skilled to be entrepreneurs. I think Steve Blank said on a Vets in Tech interview on entrepreneurship, and specifically for veterans, you can't die from entrepreneurship, right? So I love that quote so much, and it's true. It's true. You know, like we are so well adjusted to rejection, to resiliency. We can do it. If anybody out there in the world that can be an entrepreneur and take on the challenges of entrepreneurship is definitely a veteran. With that said, we have the mentality of I will never quit. We have the resiliency. I mean, military is spending a lot of time on training and MRT and resiliency and so on. And the mission first, you know, like you must accomplish the mission, putting down like that goal and going after it. And the failure is not an option. It is okay to pivot and continue moving in the area that you need to go into. With that said, I think I covered more than 3, you know, tangible lessons, but I hope that, you know, this was useful. And if you have any additional questions, happy to answer.
Ikram, absolutely useful. Thank you so much. Amazing. And I would love to pose a question here to the group. Companies in every industry are transforming as they navigate the disruptions brought on by the current pandemic, one of our current realities at the moment. I'm wondering, how has your company transformed over the past few months? From your experience, what is your advice to founders and leaders on innovating during this time and during this moment? I leave it open to the panel. Please jump in.
Sure, I'll start this one. As far as advice, I mean, we're living through it, right? So I don't know if I'll call it some takeaways that and things I think are essential. Strategic partnerships are, in the best of times, they help you scale. The worst of times, like now, perhaps, they help you survive. I think that specific to the industries that I'm involved in, healthcare and travel, we know that both of those have been adversely impacted, to say the least, by COVID. Healthcare is overburdened, and travel hasn't been happening, at least the way it was a year ago. I think that you're going to see value creation in the sense that how can we give our customers more for their money, knowing that individuals are strained financially, knowing that if perhaps I have a credit card and I've got points for this credit card, do these points give me what I really need, right? Because I need more value with each dollar I spend. I think that's the shift and the sensitivity, if you will, that we're going to be seeing across all industries. And so companies will have to say, how do we treat our employees, our customers? They have to reevaluate those things. And COVID is an accelerant for many things, but I think there's an accounting that's occurring now, whether we look at working remotely and people saying, how is this company going to treat me as a working mother or whatever other life circumstance you can have. It's more personal now because work is home and home is work. And so I think that this shift is really going to emphasize how people are treated and what value they obtain with each transaction.
Olaseni, thank you so much again for those words of wisdom. Michael, it looks like you're unmuted.
Yeah, I think that's great. I would just add, I think as a startup, you know, a lot of us are, I think, able to withstand kind of this work from home thing a lot more easily than others because we're small, because we're you know, what they call post infrastructure, right? We're using Google and AWS and Facebook. We're not using you know, kind of more typical architectures and infrastructure. So that's helpful. And there's a culture of flexibility and all of that. I think so that lets startups bear the burden a little bit more easily. On the other hand, startups are cash poor. So, you know, cutting costs and being, you know, being frugal about what, you know, there's no travel. So at least that's a cost that's kind of automatically cut. But, you know, how can you survive long enough to go through to another funding cycle or to another big contract? So, you know, being maybe a little bit more thoughtful about how you spend your money and how you spend your burn is been pretty important. And then again, the kind of common theme of the day, you know, what are your people doing? Are they okay? Are they sick? Are they freaking out? You know, and even beyond that, how do you stay connected? We have people in New York and London and Chicago. Like, how do we stay a startup family in such a remote environment and thinking through how to do that. It hasn't been easy, and I think Olaseni has said exactly right. There's no roadmap. We're kind of experimenting as we go, but thinking through all of those things has been a real challenge.
Michael, thank you so much. Chastity or Ikram, if you would like to share, we'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. I think one thing I'd like to touch on is the fact that as small businesses, startups, you name it, we're definitely feeling the heat, but it is also like it's very general, like the tech giants, the tech giants may not be hurting as bad, but big companies are definitely feeling it as well. It is not easy as a leader, as a CEO, to lay off people, to make these cuts. All the list goes on and on. But in all good old military army grunt, hunt the good stuff, right? We continue to hunt the good stuff, and we're optimistic that things will continue to change, pivot, and then it boils down to being resourceful again, and that's, as veterans, that we're very comfortable in that space.
So I would chime in and say definitely during this pandemic, some of the silos that I'm in, the Google Startup Academy, in connection with Goody Nation, some of the things that were implemented was Mental Health Day. Every Monday, we would, everybody that wanted to chime in on a web session and just let it all out. One of the things that I experienced through this pandemic was I lost my grandmother back in May. And, that's a pretty devastating blow, especially when you're very close to. And a lot of people have lost people, and their families, close friends during this pandemic. And it's not all about the business losing, right? So one of the things that I've learned through this pandemic to implement in both of my companies is to provide some type of mental health support to the people that work with me. The other thing that I've seen, just going through this pandemic as an entrepreneur is being compassionate towards other small businesses. With Right Tech, which is my legacy company, I, gave, discounts because I know they have been hit hard. You just have to be understanding of people's circumstances, have those conversations. Sometimes they're hard. People don't like to talk about finances so much. But we know if we ourselves haven't been hit financially because of this pandemic, we know somebody that has. And, bringing in, the energy of compassion and understanding people's circumstances and maybe giving them that discount on your services, or, maybe doing it for free if you can. So it's things like that we've definitely done with both of my companies.
Thank you all so much for sharing. I know that you are some of the most agile and compassionate leaders that we have in the veteran community. So again, we are hearing in the chat how incredibly helpful your candid nature is and your words of wisdom. Thank you all for sharing. And Chastity, I love that you mentioned funding. I would love to ask the group, what types of funding have you decided to take on? And how have you found funders that are also aligned with your values and your mission, whether they were philanthropic funders, government contracts, debt, or private equity? Perhaps, if willing, each of you could share the type of funding that you took on and how you knew that they were aligned with your values and your mission. I know that many of our founders are really interested in deciphering that code. How do they move forward?
So for us, Infotron, I set out from the gate to go after grants, SBIR grants. Here during the pandemic, some things have been there have been some blessings in the pandemic. Although overall it's not a great situation. One of the things that has come up for us is connections to colleges. So now we're able to partner with some schools, and colleges to have them come on and do internships, which gives us another opportunity to go after STTR grants. But strategically from the gate, when I started Infotron, it was to get all the free money I could possibly get, do as many pitch competitions. Pitch competitions are virtual now. There's a lot of resources. You can literally Google a lot of this stuff, and it'll come up. You know, there are different ones for different demographics, veterans, women, you name it. It's all out there to find. That really didn't slow up. And I will say this specifically for people of color, people really kind of poured into those people during this pandemic around grants and you know, just trying to be supportive financially. As far as the VC side of it, for me, I'm kind of trying to stay away from that as long as I possibly can. I do have some interested angel investment groups, some interested angel investors, individuals, as well as some VCs, some groups. But when it comes to that, it's a courtship of sorts. So, you know, just because they're writing that check that you probably need, you know, like Michael was saying, that burn cash, it can go fast. You still want to have, you know, build that relationship, build that rapport with them, understand them, what their mentality is about their investment into you, because generally an investor invests in the person, not necessarily the company. But then you have investors that are looking for a return, and that's what it is. Bottom line, they want a return. So those things come up in conversation. And, you know, don't just, you know, this old saying, mom, grandmother, everybody, don't hop at the first go round, you know, like just kind of, if one is coming, you know, the next bus comes in 15 minutes, right? And those people tend to talk amongst each other. That's the other thing I found. So if one VC has approached you, your name or your company is being discussed in different rooms. So, you know, if you're not feeling it, I'm all about energy and feeling people out. Do that. Pray about it if that's what you do, yoga about it if that's what you do, but definitely cultivate that relationship first before you take money from anybody, especially dealing with VCs and angel investors, and see if it aligns with what you have as a vision for your company.
Chastity, so well said. Thank you so much. Michael, it looks like you're unmuted.
Yeah, I think that's great, and Chastity made a couple of great points. You know, VC money is expensive money. To the extent you can earn your valuation the old-fashioned way, that's great through actual customer contracts and grants. In both of my companies, we've taken the other way. We've taken venture. My first company. You know, as a first-time entrepreneur, you almost kind of have to take what you can get. You know, people aren't necessarily pounding down your door to give you money. And then later, once you've proven yourself, the tables have turned a little bit. But it was a struggle. And I think for entrepreneurs today, man, I wouldn't want to be in your shoes. Raising seed capital right now is tough. Chastity said it exactly right. The investors are looking to invest in the person, especially at the seed. And if they can't meet you and know you and have several cups of coffee or beers with you or whatever the case, you're just never going to get that check. It's just really hard to do over the phone, over Zoom, really hard. So, you know, I would say, like, if you want seed investment, you know, you got to look to people that you know, and hopefully your network is strong enough. Maybe there's some more leeway in Silicon Valley. It's always kind of different here, but I think that's really tough, and we were fortunate not to be raising in a pandemic. But you know, now we have venture in my current company. We have venture capital, yeah, you know, we like our investors, but they've been very entrepreneur friendly. They're very entrepreneur friendly, but they want a return. So we better deliver it, and we intend to. But it's a different dynamic when you have that, you know, venture backed capital and venture board. Yeah, I think the other thing is I would also note that some of the venture capitalists have pulled back a little bit. Their portfolio companies have been hit by this pandemic, like a lot of people have. You know, if they have investments in retail or certain consumer services, those may have gone to zero, and so they may be less likely to go out to new investments and instead be doubling down on their portfolio companies that they feel have a better opportunity. So I think that there are a couple headwinds right now for entrepreneurs looking for venture specifically. I think it's a little tougher out there.
I wanted to offer a varying opinion, and I have agreed with so much of what Chastity and Michael have both said, and Ikram. So I'm more early stage in this formation. So Carpe Med was formed about a year and some change ago. And when we talk about funding resources and the resourcefulness of being a veteran, I've had to get very creative. I did a friends and family round of 30K, right? And I'm an MBA student, a full-time student, growing a startup through the ecosystem, right? So it's leaner and I can leverage a lot of the benefits of being in the academic ecosystem. But I also interned at Google last summer, and I used that money that I was getting paid at Google to pay my interns. Like, it is a straight hustle. And I am in that bracket of, you know what, I'm trying to raise seed, pitch competitions. I always get tired of hearing my voice over Zoom and seeing that the four squares, but you keep grinding, right? And so I just want to also, socialize that to others who may be listening, who may feel disheartened that, like, we've all gone through this. I'm in the battle phase, but being as resourceful as possible, in my opinion, is one signal. Say, this is what I've built without any of your money, all right? This is what we've built with sweat equity, with team, with passion, right? And your money would be great, but we're going to do this irrespective of your money. And the challenges that Michael highlighted are true. The Zoom pitches, it's tough. People are multitasking. Sometimes I see people's eyes going left to right. I'm like, they didn't get that point. It didn't really resonate with them. You follow up with another detailed email, and it's just constantly chasing virtually. And I'm better in person, so I find the challenge, as Michael said. But I just want to extend to you that you have to be as resourceful as possible, because it's your dream, it's your mission, and find a way, right? And so I think it was challenging to work at Google, love that ecosystem, but also I had to pay my interns, and it was a complete hustle, but you just do what you have to do.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I would like to kind of wrap up all of this and put a bow on it with the startup ecosystem that we're building in Vets in Tech that we've built. So we have what we call VetCap, right? It's capital for veteran, and it literally covers absolutely everything you just said, like grants, VC money, bootstrapping, and working your way through it. And SBA loans and more. And so there will be an event coming up where we do another VetCap. Again, like the pitching you've touched on, it never gets old. You pitch, like you're pitching your sleep. So I would encourage anybody, specifically veterans, if you're listening and you need answers to raising capital, more than happy to elaborate some more and share more on that programs, the VetCap specifically.
Thank you, all panelists, and Ikram, thank you so much for sharing that resource. Perhaps we can get a link to that in the chat and/or in our resource email sent out later. We would love to share that with all of you, including additional resources that these panelists might desire to share. I know that top of mind, they probably have a few things that they would want to share with the audience. So we have just a few more minutes. Olaseni, I would love to ask you a specific question about your company, Carpe Med, and then we'll wrap it up possibly with a question from the audience. So Olaseni, Carpe Med, we know, is driven and powered by military resilience. It sits at the intersection of travel and healthcare, two industries that have faced unprecedented changes and innovative solutions over the past few months. Can you give us some insight about how your company was founded in resilience? You spoke a little bit to this earlier, and how that is showing up in your company at this very moment, in this moment in time.
Sure. Thank you, Maria, for that very easy question. Just joking. So Carpe Med was founded in 2015. And I say 2015 because that was the incident that became the catalyst to the formation. I was in the military at the time. My partner and I traveled to Tanzania, and 2 days into the trip, she became extremely ill from mosquito bites. So we sought medical care. We had travel insurance. We had all the stuff you would typically have on a trip. We went to one doctor. That doctor couldn't figure out what was wrong. Went to a second doctor, and she became increasingly ill, like throwing up, headaches. We just didn't know what was going on. Cut our trip short, went back to Germany, saw 3 more doctors. And this was the odyssey of 5 doctors across 2 continents. And there was, during that process, also a lot of bias, a lot of dismissiveness. And the question was like, how long does it take us to find a good healthcare provider? We went back home, still with no answers, and I asked her how she was feeling. And a couple hours later, she said, I feel like something's eating my brain. We ran to the ER and she was diagnosed with meningitis. And this had been caused by a mosquito that bit her in Tanzania, which had the chikungunya virus. It had gone undetected all this time. She ended up being in the hospital for 3 weeks. Then that led to 2.5 years of following medical care, lots of bills. So this left an indelible footprint in my mind, like how can we solve this issue? And 5 years later, right, 4 years later, I found myself in business school. So I came to business school with PowerPoint deck and a vision, and that grew into Carpe Med. And the question was, when you're traveling, when you get sick abroad, like how do you find quality care? Where do you get your recommendations from? And do you trust them with your health? So we set out to build a platform, a travel companion that goes with you everywhere. It answers these questions for you. We've had this curated list using machine learning, algorithms, and a decision tree, using many signals that we've studied through. And what your question about resilience is, we didn't stop when we didn't find an answer from the first doctor or the second doctor, the third doctor. That same intellectual resilience is what our team has. We're doing that hard work now for customers in the future so that they don't have to go through this. And with 2 taps of a button, wherever they are in the world, they can find the high performing healthcare provider. And so our team is really passionate. I think the resilience aspect of, we started building this before COVID. Then COVID happened and people are like, what's gonna happen now? People will never travel. Well, we're a nomadic culture. We travel. It's to our core. And when that starts back, people are going to need these solutions. So the analogy we tell investors is basically, what 9/11 did for travel, the creation of the TSA, is what COVID-19 is doing for personal health, wellness, and access to care. You see how important access to care is. It's been ignored for so long. And this is where we come in. So yes, we're at the intersection of travel and healthcare, but we're moving the needle to remove bias, to make sure you have quick access. And at the end of the day, health is wealth. If COVID has taught us anything, it's that health is wealth. And really that's the resilience through COVID, the resilience through finding solutions to this problem. We live through this every second. And I'm just really proud of our team for believing in the mission and growing together in the last year. And we're launching our beta this month and our full launch in Q1 of 2021.
Huge accomplishment, Olasani. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So we just have a few more minutes, and this panel, I feel as though we could spend another hour together because there are so many questions and there has been such deep and honest insight. I think a great question to wrap us up: how are you actively hiring and recruiting veterans in your businesses? Some of you spoke to this. How can we better tap into those transitioning out of the military who may not even be considering entrepreneurship? What might your insights be? Anyone from the panel, please jump in.
I can definitely add to that. I think so one of our biggest goal for the Startup Network is really to encourage entrepreneurship early on, like still in active duty even. It is, I can speak to all the leaders, please feel free to chip in. We have officers and non-commissioned officers on this panel. There's a lot of times, like in leading your soldiers, you ask them to be gainfully employed. And by that, I mean, getting them the education they need. If they're not necessarily training or preparing for combat, then they can be learning a coding class, they can be in a coding class, they can be earning college credits and more. And to give you some stats on this, so 49% of veterans after World War II, 49% went on to start a business. And today that number is at 4.5%. Again, 4.5% of post 9/11 veterans are entrepreneurs. That just, if anything, tells me that we now then more than ever need an ecosystem like we have at Vets in Tech, and we need to collaborate more. We need to do more in the space of awareness, entrepreneurship awareness, and really taking advantage of the veteran skills, the grit, the resiliency, and the long list of things that we've mentioned before. So with that said, I'm happy. Again, if you are a veteran, please join the Vets in Tech community, and I'm happy to guide you through our programs.
Ikram, thank you so much. Does anyone else on the panel, would you like to to chime in for this final question, how you are engaging veterans currently within your company.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in, and it's not specifically through a company, but through the Berkeley ecosystem. And I do a lot of mentoring for vets who are transitioning, because they'll ask, is the MBA the right path for me? Is entrepreneurship the right path for me? And I've sort of taken a path that's a hybrid of all of those. And the point is, like, I always will respond, and it may take me a while, whether it's LinkedIn or any medium. But one message I always want to send is, you have so many skills that are transferable. And in some of my other jobs, I would help vets demilitarize their resume, because we use a lot of jargon, and we're also trained not to really speak about ourselves. But you go into the outside world, and you have to be an advocate for yourself and amplify your skills and things you did that you're like, everyone else does that. I don't need to talk about it, but you need to, right? And you need to market yourself. And I just think that we're a humble group, and which is great, but we also have to lean in, and you have the skills. I just always want to leave on a positive note that there's so many things you've done. They're amazing, and service to the country, obviously, putting the nation before yourself. You can lead with that anywhere you go, but you should have that confidence and know that you've done some amazing things in your life already, and that really it's just up to you to choose the path.
So one of the ways that I have, as I spoke earlier, a core of my people that work with me are veterans, but I just kind of lean on the people that I, served with. I lean into those networks. I was, fortunate enough to work on a joint mission. So I have people in all of the branches, and I just kind of, hey, who's retiring, who's getting out, what are you planning to do? Just have those conversations with those people, see where their mindset is. Everybody can't be an entrepreneur. I remember when I first started out as an entrepreneur, it was like, hey, you should come, you should, if that's what you do, if that's the best thing that, if that's what you want to contribute to the world, why not turn it into a business? And, some of those people are like, I don't necessarily want to do that. So it's just having those conversations. But to answer the questions, I lean heavily on my network that I created while I was in the uniform, and just kind of, turn back and bring those people in. That's kind of my pipeline, just utilizing the network that I already had established.
Chastity, thank you so much. Michael, would you like to add to the conversation before we close out?
Sure, I pretty much follow the same rule as Chastity. I definitely leaned on my network. It's kind of like, it echoes the VC thing I said earlier. I mean, especially at the very early stage, you're going to be working long hours with these people. And you're going to be closer to them than your spouse in some cases, right? And so you need to know you can work with them. You need to know what the downsides are, because founder strife is like the number one thing that'll destroy your company. So I lean down my personal network almost exclusively in the beginning, and then as you grow, I think you can look to organizations like Vets in Tech and others to help you source more individuals. But in the beginning, I think it's got to be people that you know and know well, or you're taking a huge risk that you won't get along and it'll kind of fall apart.
Thank you so much. So to wrap us up today, panelists, you are stellar, incredible humans and such exemplary founders, especially at the intersection of veteran and entrepreneurship. So thank you so much for taking the time to speak to our community, to share your insights, and to set such an incredible overview. I want to say on behalf of NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center and everyone in attendance today, we sincerely thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having me, for sure. Enjoyed it.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Same, it's a pleasure.
That was great.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So for all of you still here, please take a look at the chat. Share your thank yous, share your opinions here, and we would love to hear from you. Click on the survey link. It will give the panelists an idea of how they shared and how it impacted you. It will also help NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center design more offerings just like this one. So we would love to hear from you in that survey. And for all of you still listening, we have 1 or 2 events coming up, actually 2 tomorrow that we're really excited about. One early tomorrow, November 19th, Mentor Makers Live. It's a celebration of Global Entrepreneur Week, and we are talking about mentorship free mentorship for all of you, similar to this panel, sharing insights and valuable information. And also tomorrow, we have a SPAX in 2020 with our sponsors, NASDAQ, KPMG, Wilson Sonsini, and Woodruff Sawyer. Again, for all of you, thank you so much for joining us. Panelists, for your time, your energy, and your insight. We are so grateful. Thank you, everyone.